What's up, Movement Masters? It's Shawn Myszka, Movement Master and OptimizeMovement.com, coming to you with another Shawn's Q&A. And today's question comes from Joe. It is, with your emphasis on optimizing movement patterns, it would seem as though a really important topic is how the athletes go about practicing movement. Do you feel the same way? And if so, how do you define what perfect practice really is for your athletes? Thanks much for the question, Joe. I absolutely love this question because I feel you are 100% correct. How the athletes go about practicing their movement skills will be one of the most important factors, if not the most important factor, towards determining if they acquire more competent movement control and ultimately movement mastery in sport. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly with your statement. Thus, let me try to tell you a little bit more here in regards to what I feel perfect movement practice really entails. Now, because of my orientation towards my attention to detail that I take, along with the deliberate intention and ownership I require of all my athletes when they're moving, many people think that, to me, perfect practice is the beautiful rehearsal of perfect repetitions of, say, the given repeatable foundational movement actions and skills. And furthermore, many of the theories and concepts that I often present on could potentially give you the idea that the more reps I can get an athlete to perform that are errorless or mistake-free, the more perfect it may actually be. However, this really isn't quite the case, so let me explain a little bit further here. Now, when an athlete is first learning a new technical execution of a given motor skill, or is, say, trying to correct a compensational aspect of the biodynamic structure or the biomechanics of a particular movement action, then in these cases, I am looking for to attain maybe a baseline rehearsal of more efficient biomechanical display and the use of more correct movement habits and behaviors. You know, and this is particularly true when we're talking about the more basic fundamental movement patterns, such as acceleration or maybe deceleration and planting position on a break of their route running or something of the like. And again, in these cases, I demand as much biomechanical proficiency and quality as humanly possible, as the repetition of perfect repetitions here in a blocked fashion will allow the athlete to essentially gain an understanding of what is right versus what is wrong, what's optimal versus suboptimal. And then later on, we can and will be putting these together in combination with other patterns to then help formulate the strategies necessary to overcome the problems of the environment more effectively. Thus, in those cases, we may be actually striving for more perfect technical execution. But to say that when we perform more game-like movement pattern combinations, especially in reaction to stimuli or the ever-changing environment of sport, that the performance that I witness I would want to be errorless or mistake-free or perfect would simply be an untrue statement. In fact, if that perfection happens, I also think that A, I'm not allowing the athlete the best opportunity to really set up their motor engram in place, or B, truly setting the design up the best for us to truly increase or acquire motor skill learning and subsequently improve upon movement mastery and true ownership. You know, we must remember here that for an athlete to be able to be deemed masterful in sport, they must be able to perform in the ever-changing chaotic environment of sport. Thus, virtuosity and ownership is truly what I'm after. And so, in order for these things to occur, we must always link the cognitive and perceptual processing that's going to occur, meaning the movement strategy planning from the brain, as well as then down through the biomechanics, and then the control of those biomechanics, as well as the ability to athletes to be able to feel their way through the sensory feedback that they're receiving from the environment, both internal and external. So they're able to detect errors and then make the necessary changes and adjustments to any subsequent challenges down the road. And this will start to be able to help us give the athlete the understanding of the what's, whys, and hows of movement, of their movement in respect to their sport. So let me expand then finally on a few ideas here that I feel have to occur for us to be able to deem practice as being perfect. You know, first and foremost, mindful movement is required at all times. I talk to my athletes all the time about this, becoming mindful about all the movement actions and strategies that they perform. And really what I mean by this is that the athlete is required to perform each and every rep in a state of readiness for feeling and adjustment. So no half-hearted reps here are allowed, and I know that you guys have heard me talk about that before. Second, I have to, as a movement coach or specialist, be able to help match the type of drill and its constraints to that level of mastery that the athlete possesses and his or her displayed level of motor skill acquisition, so what's already been acquired. You know, these task requirements then should take that athlete to the brink of their already attained skill level, kind of push them to the edge, pushing them into the learning zone, but not so far so that they're able to allow themselves to kind of work through the process of detecting the errors and then learning how to handle feedback both from themselves as well as up from the environment, so they're better able to learn what that feedback means to them regarding the effectiveness and the efficiency of the movement that they displayed, so that they can then change it next time if necessary. You know, and thirdly, on this note, as the movement coach or specialist, I must continue to ensure that the tasks are adjusted accordingly and continually based on the proficiency level the athlete is displaying in their execution. You know, I can't allow the drill to get too chaotic, as well as I can't allow it to become so repeatable for an athlete who's going to have to perform biomechanically and behaviorally in variable conditions. So I want to be able to stress aspects of both the brain and the biomechanics to then make sure that the athlete shows the ability to do the right things from all positions and in response to all environmental stimuli changes. And, you know, finally, to help influence this, the feedback from myself will have to become more and more specialized based on the athlete's level of mastery. You know, and this piece is imperative. I don't want the athlete to get too reliant or dependent on me, as what we need and desire is ownership for the athlete in the execution of the movement when it counts, which is in the sport, which I won't be there when they really have to execute it when it counts the most. Thus, I, or we all, have a huge responsibility to get this part right. You know, we have to augment their movement with the right amount as well as the right kind of feedback. You know, and this feedback, at least at first, is going to be pretty constant when the athlete is trying to learn the new skill or is trying to specialize a local kinematic or behavioral aspect of their movement display. However, I will begin to kind of pull back the reins and decrease the feedback and use it more sparingly and allow them to tell me more about what they're feeling and thinking during the performance or execution of the movement task. Because then and only then am I able actually to get kind of perfect practice, if you will, because that perfect practice then will help elevate the level of mastery that we attain through helping them gain greater control and ownership over their motor skill, over their movement display, and then therefore hopefully take them to the next level, even if it's not as pretty and beautiful in its execution when someone looks at the actual practice, because there's going to be more errors, there's going to be more mistakes, but the athlete's going to be able to work through them. So now, Joe, terrific question, and you know, you can probably see that the topic of practice and its perfection is definitely as complex as the movement that we're witnessing. So hopefully my explanation helps shed a little light here for you on a few imperative aspects of it. I do appreciate the question, Joe, and of course to all you movement masters out there, if you have any questions, you can reach me at Shawn, S-H-A-W-N, at OptimizeMovement.com, and I'd be happy to answer them. So for another Shawn's Q&A, this has been Movement Mastery, OptimizeMovement.com, and Shawn Myszka, and until next time, Movement Masters, let's go out and get it, and let's all continue to master the art of optimizing movement.